like a very dramatic movement piece about getting your period for the first time. Like,
was this when you were back in Kentucky?
yes, yeah.
Where you grew up?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And
Bluegrass state.
I was told you are the daughter of a police chief / pastor father.
Yeah.
That's a combo. Hi, I'm Jonny Nelson.
And I'm Sarah Durham.
And we're improvising with some wigs. If I could be an animal, surely I'd be a sea otter.
Yeah.
You
have sea otter energy, Jeff.
I have the playful spirit of a sea otter. I like getting wet.
Yep.
And
I've always said that about you.
You've said
Jeff's always wet.
If I have a bad day and I come home crummy, you're like, hose me down.
Hose you down. Get you in that bathtub
get a smile on my face
with your glass of Diet Dr. Pepper.
There's some animals who are like a one animal, like a made up for life sort of animal. Mm-hmm. That's us.
Yeah. I was his au pair.
Yep.
He was an older au pair. I found him when he was 19.
We had sex the first night we met.
Yeah.
But it wasn't physical sex.
And our spiritual genitals mingled that night. Did they mingle?
It was more than just the tip, I'll say that.
Yeah. And it was more than just the front entrance for me, too. A lot of entrances.
You want to do a podcast?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sarah, what a frickin' treat to have you in the podcast studio, which is mobile here in Sarasota.
Yeah, this is so cool.
Sarah and I got to meet each other this last month. You're a performer, a playwright, and hold on, executive and artistic assistant to the managing director.
Wow, the whole time.
Yeah, well, I had to write it down.
Yep. I have to write it down too.
Florida Studio Theater. Yeah. How long have you been working here?
I came to FST almost 4 years ago. I started as an intern. I was a playwriting intern.
A playwriting intern, very cool.
Mm-hmm. And then I came on full-time March 1st of 2020.
Okay.
So 17 days before the entire theater shut down for a year.
I feel like there's so many stories like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like I was just starting this new endeavor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was crazy. And thankfully they kept me on because all we could do was write for a year.
Oh my gosh.
So we wrote, I think I ended up coming out of the pandemic with, we do cabarets here, like music reviews. We came out with 12 music reviews, fully written, ready to be produced. And we only produce 3 a year.
Wow.
So we're like set.
You're backlogged.
Yeah.
And it was all about the start of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, all of it was just
all so topical.
Yeah. I got a fever
2 years ago.
of 103. Yeah, all the sickness songs.
You're about to open a play, right? A musical sketch review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called Laughing Matters, and it's like a parody musical. I always say it's like musical theater and baby boomer pop parody songs. So it's a lot of like golden age musical theater, but then it's also mixed with Beach Boys and the Beatles, and we have a David Bowie song in there. But it's all parodied, and it's either locally specific jokes of Sarasota or topical political. If you know, our governor down here is Ron DeSantis, and so we have a song that is the old Cole Porter song, It's DeLovely, but it's DeSantis. Oh yeah, top breed of comedy.
Yeah. I feel like just like getting a couple opportunities to hop on stage here, it's like Sarasota, I don't know if Florida specific, but Sarasota specifically, it's like this is a very specific demographic and audience that you're writing for.
Oh, absolutely.
How have you like had to like work with that or around that, or what has that been like?
It's definitely the stuff like I'm 32, so our general demographic is over 70, retired, white, top tier tax bracket. Yeah. So it's like the richest retired people ever. Like one of our board members was a vice president for ExxonMobil.
Okay.
That kind of wealth, like
Yeah.
insane wealth.
That's a different life.
Yeah.
I like when I get around people with that much money, it feels like I'm like talking to someone from like another world.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not sure how to talk. I could sense it.
Yeah. And I grew up like middle class, like for the most part, always had my needs met, like constantly throughout my life. I'm able to like look at like my points of privilege, but then when I meet someone like that and I'm like, you could hand me $1 million right now and it would not change your life.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy to think. And I'm like, I'm constantly trying to find someone to adopt me or like do like a Tuesdays with Maury situation.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Yeah.
This is a plug right now if anybody's watching.
Yeah.
Sarah's looking for a Maury or a Maureen.
Yeah.
That's just a placeholder for a name.
Yeah.
You just have to be
We'll
rich.
take them all. Yeah. And that's the thing, like working in the arts industry in general, you have to be kind of a schmoozer in places. Like when you're working so like all the donors, we don't have to memorize their names and faces, but for the most part, it's like, you should know who they are.
You probably should know who they are.
And, but I'm also that type of person because I'm like a Nancy Drew. Like I'm always into like digging in, and I will Google them and like find out their like life stories and stuff. And like, so I'm like, oh, so that's how he made all his money. Like that's how, like we have a guy who, the president of our board, because we're a nonprofit here too. He his grandfather was the longest running Major League Baseball general manager in Major League Baseball history.
Oh wow.
And you like little things like that matter to nobody, but I'm just like, I have to know how you made your money because I'm a playwright and an improviser and I'm doing okay.
And I have to write jokes specifically to your demographic.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel like as you're like writing shows and stuff, what sort of things are like on your radar of like, this is no-go zone, or this is what this audience is gonna eat up?
Yeah. The eating up is definitely the Sarasota has like very specific jokes that the audience is gonna kill every time.
The roundabouts?
Roundabouts.
I already got a sense for that. It was like brought up in every show.
Roundabouts are brought up. Red Tide. If anyone knows what Red Tide is.
Red Tide came up in a show. I was in here too.
Yeah, and it's like an algae bloom that happens every so often and kills tons of fish and sea life. It's completely man-made because it's where sugar factories dump their runoff into the ocean. Yeah, and it exacerbates the algae.
Yeah.
And then it's like my first year here, you couldn't walk around near the ocean without like the smell is just Long John Silver's times 1,000, just rotting fish.
So much Long John Silver's talk today.
That's a callback.
I love Long John Silver's. I love it having it like once every it used to be once a year when I was a kid. It was the first. It was the first snow of the year for some reason. It was a tradition.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're like, well, let's go to Long John Silver's, and then we'd be like, oh, we're like, you, as soon as you walk out, you're devastated. You went there. You're like, why? I know better.
Long John Silver's was a post-church place for us growing up because the Long John Silver's in my town was a Long John Silver's and A&W. So everybody could find something they wanted.
Yeah, of course.
You could get your chicken or your fish or your burger and your
curly
frosty
fries,
mug. Yep.
Your float.
Yep.
Oh my God.
All in one. So it was always that.
Right after church.
Yeah. Or the Arby's, which was randomly an Arby's / an Italian restaurant.
Which both of Long John Silver's and Arby's are like both joke restaurants.
Yeah.
Those are the restaurants that people are like, an Arby's.
Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, there's not one within like a 20-minute drive of here.
Yeah, that's the same thing in Chicago. It's like there's like one maybe, if at all.
No, my family makes fun of me when I go home. I'm like, can we go to Arby's? I need my roast beef. Because there's not one around here. Also, Hardee's. Did you grow up with Hardee's? Or Carl's Jr.?
Yeah, right. I think there's Hardee's, but we just didn't really go there. My mom worked at a Hardee's growing up, so maybe she didn't want to go there. You know, you get burned out on something.
I will look anyone dead in the eye and tell you that Hardee's has the best breakfast in the world.
Really?
Yep.
I love a breakfast sandwich.
Their sausage biscuits. When I go home, sausage biscuits. I like day one, I'll order like 10 sausage biscuits and just put them in the fridge and like heat them up throughout the week.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you know, those classic Kentucky staples, sausage biscuits and Arby's.
I heard that you do a lot of writing for kids shows here too.
Yeah.
Kevin was telling me, what's Kevin's last name?
Kevin
Allen.
Love you, Kevin.
Well, what a hilarious man. We look alike too, so I bonded with him very quickly. He was telling me write for kids shows, and like you're really great at making it still fun for the parents and like having like parent jokes in there.
That's honestly, I have discovered in the last few years that I think in terms of writing, like children's theater is I don't want to say passion, but it's my favorite thing to write right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, especially being in this demographic, if I had to choose between writing for, and I love writing for them, for anybody who's out there listening to this, for the older generation versus writing for these young people. Like I think I was in second grade, I saw a touring show of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it was two people.
My favorite book growing up.
And two people did the whole show. And I can still like tell you jokes and like things from that show. And that was almost 30 years ago now. And ever since then,
I could just see you two in the auditorium just like glued to it, and all the rest of the kids are like, "Argh."
No, it was like fingers on the back of the chair in front of me, just like salivating.
Aslan.
Yes. You don't sound like Liam Neeson. But no, it was just being able to write, especially like we have a lot of great children's entertainment out right now. I mean, we always have, but then there's so much that's just drivel and so much that's like, especially in the children's theater world, it's a lot of like, let me lay this moral out for you, hand it to you in a box. And for me, I just got done writing a panto version of Cinderella, which if you know what panto
No,
is,
I don't.
It's generally British. Like it's a lot of physical comedy. There's always drag in it.
Okay.
So our stepsisters were played by male identifying actors, and you have like your grand dame, who is like your storyteller, we did the fairy godmother, but then you incorporate modern music into it. Oh. So it's the Cinderella like I wish moment, if you're familiar with the Rodgers and Hammerstein version, is like in my own little corner.
Okay.
Or Someday My Prince Will Come is the Disney version.
Yeah.
We did I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston.
Cool.
So like incorporating modern music into it. So it's a lot of like, even that I Want to Dance with Somebody is not necessarily a song a kid's gonna recognize.
Yeah. It's like a parent song.
Yeah.
Savvy.
And I think I live in that world of like, I'm gonna laugh my butt off at like children's things, but I can also like, you know, go to town on a dick joke. Like, you know, that like world of, and that's another thing, like sexual innuendo is big in panto, which we toned it down here because Britain can get away with more of it than America can.
Yeah.
But that world of like, I don't want to pander to anybbe like when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And I think it's more important for families to experience it than.
I have less experience with writing. I've like it's mostly been like sketch writing, not like plays or anything like that. And I feel like plays is a whole different thing. But you know, when you're improvising, often like the mindset is like, don't pander to the audience. Know who the audience is.
Yeah.
But then like you really just have to play your own sensibility and like try to make your partners laugh and invite them in on that,
right?
Because it's like an audience doesn't even know what they want most of the time, right?
Absolutely. And that's one thing too about, we're so lucky here that we have an improv show every Saturday night. And I think in the last year, outside of like a couple times when I was out of town, maybe have missed 3 shows. So it's every Saturday night we're performing.
That's great.
And I've never gotten to experience that anywhere. And in a place like Florida, like I moved here not even knowing this existed.
Yes. I would say like just already being here, it's just like it's so fascinating. And I traveled to the East Coast this past year and did, improv workshops over there. There's so many people who are like, oh, I'll move to Chicago to like perform and do stuff. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you might like you were in Chicago.
I was,
It's
yeah.
hard to like get stage time or be involved in
Absolutely.
things. And the caliber of the performers here are just as awesome. And
Yeah.
but there's more opportunity.
And we have a lot of people here who have Chicago crossover too, or New York crossover. And because we're a theater first, and then that theater kind of seeps into our improv, which I think is interesting because so many people are like, it's one or the other. But then that crossover of having these theater performers who are like, yeah, I'll do improv, and then come in and take classes and then, rise up to the cast. And
yeah.
but like getting to perform every Saturday, like weekly, we know our audience so well here. And so it's hard not to fall into those.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a deadpan joke to the audience about a roundabout, which I know is going to kill.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily challenging me. And we do a lot of short form, but like last night we did a long form show, like a musical Herald. And I think like audiences are like, they're like, oh, we recognize who's on Is It Anyway? So that's the show that's going to sell the most is like the short form gamey shows. But then we get to surprise our audience with stuff like we did last night. And they're like, okay, this is great. Like there's so much more to this. And then they keep coming back.
That's cool.
Hopefully.
Get them on board for like some long form.
Yeah. Well, and then Will, who's our director, does like he invented freeform out of Improv Boston. And then in a few weeks, we'll start our freeform show, which is just I don't know, like watching Improv Boston, like watching Big Bang, his troupe out of Boston, do freeform. It's beautiful. It's like watching. I'm gonna get so cliche. But like watching like a symphony of like how everybody complements each other and how you can't find the strings ever, and getting to like see that, and like it's something our audience doesn't get to see often, but when they do see it for them,
Yeah.
it introduces them to something new, and they still enjoy it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
My like working with kids is like almost backwards from what you do, because what I've for like 7-8 years I've been directing the youth ensemble shows at Second City, and it's kind of the inverse, because they're kids, they're the ones writing the show, and they're writing it for adults.
Oh, okay.
Because that's pretty much their parents who are coming, and obviously like we like have to make it clean enough that for like their grandparents and their little siblings, but it's not really. It's so funny because these kids are like aging up their humor and like playing roles that just like the juxtaposition. You're like I want a divorce. It's like
with a 12-year-old.
Yeah, acting out things they've seen from the television or their parents' lives. And what tickles me about it, I have a dark sense of humor, and so I don't know if I'm fostering in these children or like being like, because I'm their director, like that's the sketch, that's the punchline,
the needles.
But it's so funny watching these kids who are like, there's just such sweet cherubs, and like when they like have like their dark sense of humor, or the like sense of humor that's very like grown up, or and all these kids are super educated too.
Oh yeah.
It's like kids from Chicago, like often well-off families who are taking classes at Second City and whatnot, but like it's very interesting because it's like the inverse of what you do. I don't write it, the kids are writing it for the parents, and the kids are performing for adults.
I worked with a group in Kentucky called Girls Incorporated, and we did it was like devised theater. So it was a lot of it's a lot of like we play improv games and do long form and pull out like kind of like sketch. That's how we create sketch, like pull out these nuggets and like but it was mostly dramatic. And again,
successffully dramatic?
Yeah, for the
it was
most
sketch
part.
though, right?
It was like sketch. The way I always like describe it is if you watch the SNL sketch, that's the high school theater troupe.
Oh God!
It's like
the one where like they have like black boxes out and they're like,
yes.
yeah.
So it's very
So
much
good.
that, and it was like, I was like, I don't want to diminish anybody's story, but like, my father left me at a circus when I was 4 years old. Like that kind of stuff. That's me making one up, but like very like intense. And,
good.
And these girls who, for the most part, came from wealthy families, very educated.
Yeah.
And like trying to get them to like their points of suffering. Again, not trying to diminish anybody's story, but just like everything is so traumatic. And like, but then we would pull out like some fun stuff too. So I was like the fun coach, like, oh, that's funny. Let's write that. And like turn that into a sketch. But then it would go from like a sketch about female superheroes into like a very dramatic movement piece about getting your period for the first time. Like,
was this when you were back in Kentucky?
yes, yeah.
Where you grew up?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And
Bluegrass state.
I was told you are the daughter of a police chief / pastor father.
Yeah.
That's a combo.
Not police chief, but he was a sheriff's deputy detective.
Okay.
So he was but yeah, was in the police force my whole life, and doesn't do police work anymore, but works in emergency services still. And but
cool.
he's a bivocational pastor. His church. Gosh, they probably have 100 members. It's a tiny little, like when you picture a country church, stone church, like way out in the boonies. Boonies, for those of you who don't know, is like way out in the country.
Were you up in the hills? The mountains?
No, not so much. We're in the center of the state.
Okay.
So we're like right in the heart.
Gets flat over there?
Yeah. Our big export is tobacco and marijuana.
Do you guys have any L8 over there?
Oh, LA, yes.
I go to Red River Gorge to go climbing. And so that's my like Kentucky.
Yes.
Like it's like that's like that's a vibe.
Yep.
Because it's all like people who live in the mountains and are
Do you
spread
get
out
Amy's
from each
pizza?
other. Amy's?
Is it Amy's?
Miguel's?
Miguel's.
Yes, Miguel's.
I was thinking of another
Miguel's
place, but yes, Miguel's Pizza at Red River Gorge.
Yeah.
That's like the
It's like the climbing
quintessential
mecca, but it's like that
Kentucky,
pizza is like worth going to even if you're not a climber.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we do like the simple stuff. I say we, like I go all the time. I've been a few times, and we do like the easy path up to like just to like the overlook, I think, or whatever you call it, and then
do you do the arch?
yes, the arch, and then we'll like come back down and get pizza. And
That place. Every time I pull up to Miguel's, because it's usually a few years in between. It feels like pulling into like Disney or something for me. I'm like so fucking pumped.
yeah, no, I love that's like people. I don't know. It took me such a long time to have like a hometown and like really love the place where I grew up. But now I'm like, you come to my house down here and I've like got a big map of Kentucky on my wall, and I'm like, I'm from Kentucky, and I tell everyone how incredible Kentucky is all the time.
All right, give me your Kentucky sales pitch. I'm like, oh, I really love it here in Sarasota. I would never visit Kentucky.
So if you want the best of like the slow pace small town life,
Okay.
Kentucky has, and like the food scene, especially like in the Louisville area, has like
Arby's.
quadrupled. Arby's,
It has Hardee's, Long John Silver's.
Yes. I always tell people like the Derby is something you should do at least once in your life. The Kentucky Derby, like
I keep hearing also. You said Louisville.
Yeah.
For like restaurants. I keep hearing people say like Louisville's cool.
Louisville's awesome, and they have like their art scene even has exploded in the last few years. Like, well, they've always had nobody knows about it unless you're in the theater world, but like the preeminent new play development theater. It's Actors Theater of Louisville. So many plays go there that go to Broadway right after.
Really?
So they go to Louisville, Kentucky, and then they go to Broadway. Yeah.
What?
Or they develop it there.
Oh, no way.
Excuse me. They have a thing called the Humana Festival, which is this massive new play festival, and I used to go every year. I actually had a 10-minute play in the festival once.
Hell yeah.
You know, humble brag. But it's just this like like they do such incredible work there, but you only know about it really if you're in Louisville or you're in the theater world.
Huh.
But then they also have their like gateways in for like the lay people of the world, which is that they do Dracula every year and they do A Christmas Carol every year.
Classic.
So that's how people find out about that theater. And they had a Top Chef season in Kentucky the year before last.
Oh, really?
So that's another plug. The food is good.
I interrupted you and I said something disingenuous when you were talking about food. I made a joke.
No,
but like,
yes.
yeah, what is the food scene like there?
I mean, Louisville has like its first Michelin star restaurant in the past few years. It's I'm a huge foodie. Like that's my other passion.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the chef's name, but it's like 610 Magnolia, I think is the name of the restaurant in Louisville.
Okay.
But even then, it's just like so many.
Did you go?
I've never been. No.
Okay, I've never been to any Michelin star.
Me neither. Because I'm also like, I'll take a bloomin' onion.
Yeah.
And be happy with that. If I can like pay $100 for like 1,000 buffalo wings,
Yes.
I will take 1,000 buffalo wings over like a sliver of bone marrow or like.
I can't tell you how many times like I've had to. Like, I'm a bit of a foodie too, but like actually I cook a lot more just because it's more affordable.
Yeah.
I love cooking. But like how many times I've had to like justify like actually what I actually really want is pizza.
Yeah.
Like there's like a 3rd grade child in me who's like, I really want the pizza.
Yeah. I always used to joke that if we were like going, like my ex-boyfriend and I were going to a fancy restaurant, I would like making jokes about like, this is where you're going to propose to me. So obviously we're not together anymore, but
you played that joke too many times.
yeah, exactly. But I always was like, I want it to be at a Dave and Buster's.
Oh yeah. Why not?
Exactly. I want to pop a champagne bottle at Dave and Buster's.
Hell yeah.
Play some whack-a-mole. And then celebrate the future of our lives together.
I've never been to a Dave and Buster's, and I feel a little cheated. Growing up, Chuck E. Cheese was like, I mean, Chuck E. Cheese, right?
Yeah.
Which brings me to something I heard about you. We're all addicts of sorts, right? And some things we have to like distance ourselves from.
Yeah.
But you've moved very close to Disney land.
Oh, yeah.
World.
Yep.
You're a bit of a Disney addict, right? And you live 2 hours from
Kevin
Disney.
Allen, in fact.
How do you cope, Sarah? You thought I was gonna hit you with something dark,
I
didn't
know.
you?
I was like, oh gosh.
What does he know about me?
The thing that keeps me from Disney World is how expensive it is. That's the biggest thing. But I am a Disney pin trader.
Yeah, which I've heard.
Yes.
I've heard you've got quite a collection.
I have about 3,000 pins.
How many of those are duplicates?
None.
3,000.
Well, okay, maybe like 15 duplicates.
Okay.
But that's the duplicates are what you call traders, and so it's when you go back into the park and you trade. During the pandemic, that's another thing that's kept me like the pandemic. Crowds in general, but also they've stopped a lot of the pin trading because of germs.
What?
So right? Who'd have thought?
Can you just wipe it down with a Clorox wipe?
You can in certain places you can do it.
Are they metal?
Yeah, they're like enamel
Okay.
for the most part.
Yeah, they're like enamel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're metal, which is like enamel.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't get that badge in Girl Scouts. The metallurgy badge. You like the cast members, which are what they call the people who work at Disney World.
Yeah.
You're a cast member. They
no matter what your role, if you're
Really, even if you're like sweeping up stuff on the sidewalk,
Okay.
you're a cast member. They have lanyards with pins on them, and you can go up to any one of them and say, "I want to trade for that pin," and they have to trade with you. Yeah. So that's like, I got my start just buying like going on eBay, which is like now I've learned is not a good thing to do because half of them are faked, but I don't care.
Oh.
I collect the ones that I like. And that's
Yeah.
But I moved into a new
can you
place.
tell a fake?
Yeah, like you can.
Yeah.
There are
Ones that are made out of pure metal, not enamel.
Yeah, they're just bronze. The back of the pen has like a Mickey Mouse pattern on it, and generally the pattern's wrong. And then you also have what are called posts on the back. So like where the pen sticks out, you've got these 2 other little teeny pins next to it that keeps it in like attached. Most fakes don't have those posts. This is fascinating.
Yeah, this is.
I'm like but I'm the type of person who's like, I just collect the ones that I like. I'm not like a diehard go out and I don't trade with other people. Like I don't trade with just other people at the parks.
Okay.
Because they're the ones who are going to be like, oh, this one's a special edition Tigger. Like, so I
didn't know this whole subculture was going on.
It's pretty massive. Yeah.
Oh my god.
But if you take pins into the park, the cast members have to trade with you.
Do you know what? Oh my god, what is it called? Oh, I don't know what it's called. This feels like. What is this called? It's like, I don't know if it's all around the world, but in Chicago, there's like. I was like, me and my friend Eli Weatherby did mushrooms.
Yeah.
And we went out to the lake and we're like, we're going to go to a beautiful spot, not be around people. And we were like walking around. We're like, oh, I don't know what it's called. We're like, why are all these like guys like in this like we keep passing these guys and look like they're looking for something. They're looking.
Oh, geocache?
No, they're they're cruising to hook up in this park with like tall grasses.
Man, I went so PG on that.
You went so PG, but there's like everybody was looking for something we didn't know, and then like I was like, we brought it up to someone and like, oh yeah, that's like a cruising spot.
Yeah,
and I was like, this cruising pin culture is going on in Disney.
Yep.
Unbeknownst to me, innocent Johnny doesn't know this.
Yeah.
When he goes there.
Did you grow up in a place where like you had a spot in town where they were always like, don't go there, that's where the gay people go to hook up?
I don't know because I was deeply closeted. Yeah. So deep that I didn't even know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We had like this place, it was called the Spillway. And
what a great name.
Right? I live on a big lake and they were like, don't go hang out at the Spillway, the gay people will try to pick you up there. And it was like, I mean, terribly. I grew up in a Southern Baptist, terribly homophobic town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, you don't go to the Spillway. Like, that's where the gay people hang out. Like,
was it true?
I really don't know. I never learned.
You weren't allowed to go.
I have been to the Spillway now. Because it's actually beautiful out there. It's like this. It's a tributary. That,
what a trick, huh?
I know, right?
Don't go. Like, that's how like people like keep it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think I went until I was probably out of high school. Yeah. Not for like that reason of I can't go there. As a child, that was my reasoning, but it was more just like never been a huge outdoor person. So like I'm good in my theater, my community theater.
I feel like it's a geographical version of like Beauty and the Beast, like don't go to the West Wing. Yes.
Yeah.
It's forbidden.
Yeah, but even like one of my best friends is from Pittsburgh, and they said that there's this park we had this conversation once, and I think it's called Shinley Park. I actually remember the name of the park. Okay. And they're like, that's where you go to hook up. That's where like all the gay people go to hook up. And so, or like that's what he was raised on, that belief of.
It is interesting too. I mean, I came out late in life, but I think out of necessity, the gay culture was like more like you had to have a location, and you had to have like, and now that it's more often generally accepted, and like you can get married and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, I don't know. In a way, to me, it's like some like kind of like those are some like weird vestiges of like things we don't even need anymore. Yeah. Like.
That's good too.
Yeah, right? It's like you don't have to do that. Although I would say too, like meeting my husband, it was like as a gay person, you're like, oh, you can't just really just be like meet someone super easily because there's less of us, right? For like dating. And I'm not a bar person of like, I'm gonna go to the bar and so like we met online, but yeah, it's interesting how those spaces are like, are those even, doesn't seem necessary anymore.
Yeah.
Like, why does there have to be a spillway or?
I know. I'm like, why can't I find the place that's like, this is where you go to meet up with funny theater people?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
like the improvisers. This is
Yeah.
where we go to meet up.
So this whole pin collecting thing.
Yeah.
What do you think the most valuable Disney pin you have is? Do they get up there?
They do. Like there are pins that are in the like $1,000.
Ooh.
Especially like pens, and what this always has made no sense to me, but pens that have something wrong with them, like a flawed pen,
Yeah.
are more
That
expensive.
makes sense. It's everything.
Yeah, and I have a Goofy Movie flawed pen that for those Goofy Movie connoisseurs out there.
A Goofy Movie is amazing, and
It's
not enough
so
people know. I wish it
underrated.
would have
Yes.
stayed around, because sometimes
Yeah.
I'll like go up to kids like when I'm teaching. I'll be like, "All right, my possum pals,
Yeah.
come on in here," right?
Oh, that movie! There is one of the most subtle, funniest jokes in a Disney movie that I laugh at every time, and it's this montage of them traveling, and they run into a cave, and they run out chased by bats, and it's supposed to be Carl's Bad Cavern, but it says Carl's Butt Cavern on it.
Oh, would never even caught that.
I laugh every time I watch it, and it's like one of those 2 seconds and it's gone. Like maybe not even 2 seconds.
That fucking Powerlink song.
Yes,
Real good.
So it's Powerline. The
Oh,
pin is-
Powerline, right?
Yeah, Powerline, Goofy, and Max, and it has a little trigger where their hands swing, like if you move it up and down, and their arms are wrong. They've mixed up the arms on it.
What do you mean?
So like Powerline's arm is attached to Goofy's arm, and Max's arm is on Powerline's arm, and maybe a couple $100. Like it's still not
But you
like
can't let that. You can't let that go.
No, I haven't. Just because I love it. I love the Goofy Movie, so it's like nostalgic to me too, which I think is so much of what I do is bred out of nostalgia. Like I am my favorite Disney movie is The Great Mouse Detective.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It is, and there's no memorabilia from that movie. Because nobody cares about it. But it's, again, I'll go back to my Nancy Drew obsession. I collect original print Nancy Drew books.
Okay.
And so Great Mouse Detective is like my love of detective, mystery, Sherlock Holmesian kind of stuff with Disney and anthropomorphic mice.
Were those mice, were they like the same cast that played in other like mice movies?
I don't know. Like the voice actors?
No. Like, did they like carry
did they put
like
those
that
yeah.
mouse was in like?
Like Ratigan.
Because I felt like there was when I was a kid, there was like this. My uncle kept taking us to like mice movies. Like I was like, there was like a slew of like mice movies. What about like Five O Goes West? Is that Disney?
Yeah. No. It's actually the first one, American Tail, is Steven Spielberg.
What?
And the animator on those movies, again, I'm a huge like children's entertainment connoisseur, but the animator on those movies is Don Bluth, and he's known for that spiel of Rockadoodle. I start with like the B movie that nobody knows. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Yeah.
Thumbelina, The Rats of Nim.
Yeah, some of those were like
Dragon Quest, something like that. He did a video game too.
It's funny, like a lot of these like movies that are getting brought up, it's like, oh, those kids don't see those anymore. Those aren't like the classics that stood the test of time.
And that's like,
but what's weird, because it's like, are they dated? They're just cartoons, and they're like animals, and like,
I would say there's something. I mean, Disney now, like the big thing is they've put like before Dumbo, there's like a thing saying there are antiquated things in this movie.
yeah,
I don't know what's it called, like a warning thing. Like before Dumbo and before Little Mermaid, or no, Peter Pan, and like some of those.
Like, you're a girl, you can't, like, stuff like that.
Well, no, like Little Mermaid, or not. I keep saying Little Mermaid. Peter Pan has a terribly racist Native American.
Is it a child?
It's like the Song of the Red Man.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Tiger Lily, like that whole.
Okay.
Like, really, and then Dumbo has the African American workers putting up the tent singing a song about how they're garbage, basically. Like, oh yeah, there's in Is it Dumbo too that the crows are named Jim Crow?
Oh.
Yeah, there's some like really, I mean, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That early stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah. And then the later stuff, they just snuck in sexual.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, just dicks everywhere.
Yeah.
And Lion King. And
What was it, like Little Mermaid?
Little Mermaid.
The priest gets a boner.
Yep. And
Right?
in
On the
poster,
cover,
yeah.
there's with the castle, there's like a penis.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The Lion King, he falls in the dust.
Mm-hmm.
Simba does, right? And it says sex.
Yes. Yeah.
And then like the monkey like grabs the dust, it like flies through the air and he smells it. What else is out there?
Oh.
Did you see the Wizard of Oz one? And I know that's
I don't know.
I don't know if this was like real or not. But it like gives me the shivers thinking about it. Supposedly, this needs to be fact checked, everyone who's listening. Supposedly, when they're like dancing at one point, like we're off to see the wizard, you can see in the background of the forest a real ensemble member who hung themselves.
I have heard that it's false.
That makes complete sense, and it's like a bird, right?
A bird or like
an ostrich or
yes, like a tall like crazy bird.
Yeah. But when I heard that as a kid and we saw that, I remember like goosebumps and us like screaming like was that?
Yeah. Have you ever done the Wizard of Oz? Pink Floyd. Is it?
No. You listen to like an album with it or something?
Yeah.
No.
It's kind of crazy.
Does it match up?
That's like a lot of it matches up really eerily.
Okay.
But that's like you take mushrooms and do that. That would be a blast.
You're in Disney World. Mm-hmm. You're on mushrooms.
Yeah. Oh God.
What ride do you get on? What ride do you don't get on?
I think the ones I would definitely get on are like the trippy smaller things, like It's a Small World.
Oh
like
no!
shrooms.
It's a Small World is a nightmare already for me.
Oh.
I would lose it on it. Like I have reoccurring. It's this weird anxiety where if I close my eyes in cold water, I have this worry that I'm going to open my eyes and I'm going to have fallen off of It's a Small World. This is not a joke.
Oh, no.
Either It's a Small World or Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yep.
And I'm going to be in that water and I have to like get to one of the mechanical like doll islands. Mm-hmm. And it's like my nightmare.
I was actually stuck on the Haunted Mansion for 2.5 hours one night.
See, I'm never doing it. I'm never doing any. Animatronics kind of creep me out.
Yeah,
the Uncanny Valley thing.
Oh, totally. We were in this one section where it's like your cart is kind of back, so we were like laid back for 2.5 hours just listening to this grim grinning ghost.
No!
And like it took me so long.
Did they turn on like the house light, so to speak, or whatever?
Well, then every minute, maybe less than that, it's like, we're sorry for the interruption. Your ride will be back on momentarily. No. And they finally had to like come get us and walk us through Haunted Mansion, like through this weird exit.
See, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be walked through. I don't want to be anywhere near those like dolls or the mechanics of things.
Mm-hmm. I've also ridden Space Mountain with the lights on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it's just all like girders.
I don't know why that creeps me out more. It always creeped me out when, coming back to Chuck E. Cheese, when kids, or Showbiz Pizza, when kids would like go under the curtain.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Between the acts, and like, you're not supposed to, but they would do it. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, I will never get within like that range of those dolls.
Yeah.
Those animatronic.
See, we didn't really I didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese probably till I was maybe like late middle school.
Oh, you missed the magic.
I did. We grew up with a place called Discovery Zone.
Was that? Oh yeah,
DZ Discovery Zone. Yeah.
Was it like ball pits and like slides?
Yes, it was all, and they had that one of those roller slides where your fingers could get like pinched.
Oh,
you remember those? Like things
it's like
that
rollers
are not
on top of each other, like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and they're like metal.
Yeah, that's not.
And
great.
like your hair would get caught in it.
Just scalp you on the way down.
So no wonder that they're not around anymore. But that was like our and my grandmother was generally the ones who would take us. As like my cousins and my sister and I are all very close in age, like within 16 months of each other, the four of us. And my grandmother would take us, but she wouldn't let us eat there. because she was
Too
very
expensive.
frugal.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we would
yeah.
just go to play. But we'd always like smell the pizza and be like so hungry. And then we would split a Happy Meal on the way home.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, she was a very frugal
She would
woman.
sneak food in. We always snuck food
I bet
into
she
like
snuck,
the movie
yeah.
theater.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Bring your own like bag of like popcorn
Yep.
and like.
Oh yeah, my best friend in college worked at Cracker Barrel, and he would get off work and it was right next to the movie theater, and we would pack whole like to go bags up from Cracker Barrel and like sit in the movie theater and eat. I'll never forget. We went and saw a Mamma Mia sing along. It was the movie Mamma Mia, but it had the lyrics at the bottom of the screen, and we're like in there with like chicken and dumplings, like eating and singing. We're the only two people in the whole theater in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee. And we got up and like we're dancing and like, oh, we're so, if anybody had been in there, we would not have done that, but we would have been the most obnoxious people in there. But I'm always generally the person in an audience who's enjoying what's happening the most. Like no matter what I'm watching, I'm always like probably, because especially if it's live,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna support the heck out of these people no matter what's happening.
Oh, I love
Like-
that. I'm always the person that people make eye contact with.
Oh really?
Yeah. I think I started to learn because I started doing stand up this past year. After years and years of being in the comedy world, I was like, I got to do this. I learned that when I go to stand up shows, I'm like, I can't sit anywhere but like back corner.
Oh yeah.
Because everybody finds me and then they look at me the whole time. And then I'm like, then I also feel like I'm just trying to support them with my eyes. And I'm like, I can't.
Oh, yeah.
It's always been
It's
that
pressure.
way. Even when I was in high school, teachers would like teach the class talking to me.
Really?
I'm like, I guess I give a lot of eye contact, and I'm usually like happy to be places, and I'm an auditory learner, so I'm listening to people talk. So maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
And people like find my eyes when they're like doing presentations.
Yeah.
That they stick with
That's
me.
so funny. Yeah, I'm very much like a kinesthetic learner. Like I have to try to do. Like I have to try to learn it. Like if I'm gonna try to learn stand up,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. Nothing's gonna like get in here until I actually get up there and like do it a few times.
Oh, okay.
Or like learning a new format of improv.
Yeah.
I can read it all I want, but until I like actually like
Do it.
put it on its feet.
When you're memorizing lines for a show.
Yeah.
Do you have a strategy of like, as a kinesthetic learner?
I generally record
Yeah.
the whole thing. And it's easier when it's like a 2-person scene. But if it's more, I even like, I'll do the voices. I'll record it fully through with my parts in it. And then I'll record it and stop talking during my parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have those fake people to practice with.
Line learner?
Oh, yeah.
That
I
app?
have done some apps, like a few things, but this is just like the free version of that, basically.
Yeah.
I did a 2-person show in college called Gruesome Playground Injuries, and it's an hour and a half, just 2 people. And that is the hardest like memorization I've ever had to do in my life. And that the whole process of that was like, I mean, day of still trying to like get my lines down.
No. I've done improv now for so long, and it's been the majority of my performing career. And I'm like so terrified of memorization.
Yes, it's harder now for me doing sketch memorization. And like we're about to do a sketch show where I have like a 1.5-page long monologue, and Kevin Allen wrote it, and I told him, I was like, it is probably going to be about 10% of what you wrote and like 90% improvised. Which he's like, he even told me before, he's like, I want you to improvise this. Like if you give me a sketch character, for the most part, I feel like I'm still going to improvise off the rails.
Yeah.
Up until the performance.
Man, it's also weird too when you're like, I feel like my brain has 2 tracks. It's like try to remember the words and improvise, and you're free.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to combine the two, because like, yeah, once I get going improvisation, I'm like, I'm gone, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you're in, like, I don't know how often like you all rehearse for your sketch shows, but I feel like sometimes we over rehearse and it just gets so dull.
it.
Like these jokes are not funny to us, which is why I feel like I need to throw in some
Keep it
stuff
fresh.
and like keep us like, I'm also a terrible breaker. in rehearsal. When you get me in front of an audience and I'm good, but I constantly break because if I'm watching like my castmate just like kill it and do something so funny, I am like out of the character immediately, which is why I never will be a theater performer, like because half the time I'm like, oh, you're really good at what you're doing, and I'm just like staring at you, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have a line now. I get sucked into like the talent of my peers,
and that's allowed, I think, in improv, because there's those two levels. It's like you are the actor, but you're also showing the audience the process at the same time. So like they see the human element of like, Sarah can't keep it together. I'm that person too.
Oh yeah, it's bad. Like because I was a theater performance major. The head of our department, like, I mean, it was like day before and I was still laughing at stuff. And and I'm also like, even as an improviser, if something goes wrong, it is so hard for me to like keep it together. Like if something I was in a Peter Pan as a child. I mean, I was young and before I discovered improv or any of that like skill set that I had. But it was like there's like whole videos dedicated to Peter Pan fails online, and they still to this day like make me laugh
plus because
harder.
There's wires, right?
Yes, yeah. And our Tinkerbell just went smack, and I had to. I remember like being up there as a lost boy, like I was crying. I was laughing so hard, like oh my gosh, to the point of I mean just I've never been able to like keep it together if something goes wrong. Or some in theater. In improv, like I can, now that I've been able to like exercise that skill set. I don't know. I just like I'm love to be the person that sends the thing off the rails sometimes. But then at the same time, I'm also, like I said, I'm just like sometimes like the people I work with can crack me up. Like
that's the best.
Isn't it so good? Yeah, when you actually get to work with people you find funny.
Man, it's been such a treat getting to play here. I also feel like it's been like almost 2 years of very little to no performing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll like get up and do a scene. I'm like, oh my God, I'm exercising demons right now out of me, like performance demons of like, I can't be, I'm always struggle to be grounded, but I'm like, I'm losing my mind. I'm trying like all of like the silly and play has been bottled up and it's.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's so great. That's what's incredible about improv is because you can go to those places, whereas most of the time it's scripted, you got to come back to the thing. But just that like, that joy that's found in play that, especially when you haven't experienced it in a while, like even because of this new variant, we hadn't had rehearsal for a while. And like when we all came back into rehearsal together, just getting to like throw all the spaghetti at the wall and like do the craziest stuff. Like our team down here has a very, excuse me, I don't know, just like this really pure sense of play that I never felt like I fully experienced in my other comedy communities, because there's like a level of competition and ego like that I don't feel down here.
That's cool.
And I don't know if it's because we all have so many performing opportunities, because there really is only one improv community here. And even in, at least in bigger communities, you've got tons of communities like improv groups to be a part of. And here it's just the one. But I don't know, it's just this very unique opportunity of like, I'm going to support you no matter what, because I don't feel like I'm competing with you. And in Chicago, I always felt that my personal story, I'm not speaking for anybody else, my story is I felt like I had to be the funniest chunky girl in the room.
Yeah, you figure out your type and then you're like, I have to be the best at that type because there's other types like me around. And
I was coming in like the midst of A.D. Bryant, who was going to SNL.
Yeah. Oh, we
And-
must have crossed paths then because
Yeah.
A.D. Bryant was there when I was there too.
And like every class I was in, I was compared to A.D. Bryant.
Oh, yeah, that's bullshit.
And then the masses, when I would do comedy in smaller communities, they would be like, "You're just like Melissa McCarthy," because Bridesmaids had just, and that's when I was like discovering because I started doing sketch in 2007 in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's where I was like sketch first and then improv,
Okay.
which is like because I was always a writer,
yeah.
and like it's like a running joke now with some of my friends that they're like, I saw your new movie, Melissa. I'm always going to be compared, like, because I am a larger, funnier person in entertainment. There's that list of like, of the only women I can aspire to be are the other chunky, funny people.
That's what people like map onto you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely, I remember that thing of like who's your type when you're like coming up through classes and you're like, are you A-list that type or are you B-list that type?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because in theater, I'm like, I have no issues playing a romantic lead. But when I get
which she did last night.
Yeah. In a musical improv. But that's the thing is like, why do I have, like, where's my baggage coming from trying to be a romantic lead in improv versus being a romantic lead in a play, like a straight play?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's probably more to unpack than this podcast.
And we'll call it there.
Yeah.
And next time.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for doing this.
This was so fun.
Thank you for being the first person to do the wigging
Yes.
out portion of it too.
Yeah. I'm going to
You were the perfect.
remember those wigs. I'm going to smell those wigs and think of Johnny Nelson.
Gross.
Come on, dance appetite, dance in the middle of the night. Come on, dance appetite, dance in the middle of the night. Come on, dance, wake up the appetite, dance